I am very, very happy to get to introduce Melissa Lozada-Oliva. She is a Guatemalan, Colombian, American writer who co-hosted a podcast called Say More with Olivia Gatwood, where they dissected the world through a poetic lens. She also has a Substack, and I love this title. It's called Reading Sucks, where she tracks the books she's reading and at the same time the distractions she has from her own life while reading them. She also interviews authors about their own struggles with reading. Melissa came up through the performance poetry slam scene. Her poem, Like Totally Whatever, won the 2015 National Poetry Slam Championship competition, and it went viral. She was and still is a well-respected performer and is considered, quote, one of the most original performance poets of her generation. Her first book was a chapbook of poetry and was called Peluda, and it explores the intersections of Latina identity, feminism, hair removal, and what it means to belong. Her second book, Dreaming of You, is a novel, but it's told in verse, meaning it's a novel in poems. It's the story of a poet who brings Selena back to life through a seance and then has to deal with the really disastrous consequences of Selena coming back. Terrence Hayes, the National Book Award winning author, reviewed the book and said it was, quote, pop operatic, a terrific combination of fan fiction and fantasy nonfiction, and a collection of moving, mercurial voices, poems from a truly singular new voice. Her new novel, which is what she's mainly going to be reading from tonight, is called Candelaria. And it continues her trajectory of work that is willing to take risks. It tackles important issues, timely issues, and it has a whole lot of fun while doing it. Candelaria follows a Guatemalan grandmother at the end of the world and her 3 American granddaughters who are the ones who started the apocalypse. The book is a roller coaster, a ride of styles and emotions, swerving from realism to horror to humor. From the vivid scene of one of the sisters dismembering and eating an annoying coworker, to the struggles between family members to overcome resentments, grudges, and reconnect as a family, the book is a mashup that takes great risks and results in a huge payoff. As one reviewer said, heartbreaking, hilarious, and absurd in the very best of ways. Candelaria sticks to your soul and leaves you seeing the world and the people in it a bit differently. And this reviewer's response was not alone, as the book was named one of the best books of 2023 by many places, including Vogue magazine, USA Today, and Hip Latina. So I have to say, in week 13 of the semester, where we're all just a little bit tired, I am really thrilled to have Melissa here sharing her vision and her thrilling new book. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce Melissa Lozada.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to take a sip of water. I'm going to read a little bit from Dreaming of You and a little bit from Candelaria. Water. So Dreaming of You, it's about a poet. Can everyone hear me? It's about a poet named Melissa, coincidentally. Maybe we're the same person. And she brings Selena back to life through this haphazard seance, and surprisingly, it works. And these disastrous consequences follow. But in addition to that, it is also about love and fandom and jealousy, which are things that I think about a lot as a woman in the world. So the first poem that I'm going to read for you is called, firstly, I'd like to say it's from the perspective of La Virgen de Guadalupe, who my grandmother prays to a lot for me every night. And it's called I'm Not a Virgin, But. I'm not a virgin, but I want to appear to you in sandwiches, water markings on the ceiling, mold above the toilet, patterns and woven baskets, a scatter plot depicting the correlation between people who lick their ice cream and people who bite their ice cream, and whether or not they lie about how many books they've read. I want you to gather strangers around the image of me because you've got to make sure it's me and not a trick your eyes are playing on you. And I want the strangers to confirm your vision. I want them to tell tales about me. I want endless products in the shape of me available in delis and on the side of the road. I want to be the one abuelitas light candles beneath, and I want to be the picture on the candle, stretched out and replicated. I want to be the one who gets daughters into colleges with full rides, brings the GoFundMe page to completion, gets shoved into the backpack during the big flood, gets hanged from doorknobs in new apartments as a sign of protection, as a sign that whoever lives there is loved. And I want everyone to believe in me eventually, but I want it to be you who finds me, plain as day, blooming among the flowers, shining from the hill, taking shape everywhere I shouldn't, obvious and made of light. Thank you. I'm going to pop this up a little more. I'm actually taller than I thought I was. So it's these boots. Okay, this one is a little weird, and it might give me like a content warning on this video, but all of this stuff kind of just comes from fears that I have. And moving through the world, as a woman, I have to keep saying that. And just like fears that I have every day. So this one is the character Melissa is really trying to find love. She's going on a lot of dates, but she's really unsuccessful. So this is called 6'5", looking for something casual that has the potential to be something more. And then there's a winky face, which always feels like assault. And that was a joke. Okay. So, all right. So that's also, that's like something you see on Tinder. Okay. All right. Be alive. All right. In a dimly lit restaurant. Is this a date? Walking back to a car in a dark parking lot with a gun to my back. Is this a date? In the trunk of a car. Is this a date? In a room tied to a chair with one dangling light bulb. Actually, I would say I'm like an introverted extrovert, locked in an attic, dressed up as a doll with a bowl of water and a plate of food at my feet. Yeah, I don't know. I just have such a weird relationship with social media. In a submarine, unaware of what day it is. I'm trying this cleanse. Have you heard of it? Chopped up into little pieces and dispersed into the ocean. Little fishes feeding on my hands. So do you have any siblings? Okay, I guess this never happened to any of you. Must be nice. So I'm going to read the poem where I bring Selena back to life. This is after a Terrence Hayes poem that I really love called Seance with Vladimirs, where he brings back all of the Vladimirs from literary history to life, and it's really weird. And I still don't know why he did it, but it gave me permission to be a freak. And sometimes you don't have any reason for doing anything. Sometimes it's just you just want to do it. So just go and make that decision, as long as it's not harming anyone. Okay? This poem is called Resurrecting Selena. My reasoning. Because it is not enough to be seen. Because I need to see. Because I miss her even though I've never met her. Because it had to be me. Because if it wasn't, then it would have been somebody else. The medium. I'm tired of feedback and I'm addicted to the internet. If someone else gets involved, it would just be too messy. I need flowers. I need a moonlight dance. I need a song to sway to and access to Wi-Fi. I do some research. I go down YouTube holes. I come up with my own method. How I brought Selena back. 1. Grow out my hair, purchase chunky gold hoops, buy some bright red lipstick that will stain. This is mainly for effect, but it can't hurt. 2, I sing backward into a recording device and then play the recording device backward. 3, I can't tell my friends anything about this because I'd think I'm nuts. 4, so I get rid of my friends. 5, I take out a loan and turn my bedroom into a lab. I take a USB drive full of Selena's images, songs, and interviews and put it into a pot of my period blood. After 3 weeks, roots begin to grow at its ends. I set up a table. I draw a figure on the table using lipstick. 6. I sing backward into a recording device and then play the recording device backwards. 7. There's more to do. I wake you up and I ask you to quickly think of the name of the girl in elementary school with the prettiest handwriting. 8. I walk into the kitchen, tie a red string around my finger, say this girl's name 5 times while spraying Fabuloso into the air. You walk in on me and are all, what are you doing? 9. I spray you in the face because I'm a reactive person. 10. I run away because I'm a reactive person. 11. I come back because I thought about what I've done. 12. Days go by. Finally, it is midnight and storming. I take the USB out of the pot of period blood and I put it in some soil. I add fertilizer. I've never been good at waiting. 13. There is a cracking in the air. The walls are vibrating and I'm holding the whole room together. I'm on the ceiling and underneath the basement floor. There's a rapid knocking on the sliding screen door, a scream coming from the pot. My cat hisses. The lights turn on and off. I'm in the closet spying and outside of the closet feeling like I'm being watched. Now it is midnight. I open a girl-shaped door. The knob holds my hand. A cloud of pink is in front of me, rising from the table, the kind of stuff that leaks from attics. I put my hand in and scream, 13A. Now I'm in a white dress running among the trees. You are behind me holding up a jukebox and it's playing something with drums. 13B. You lose me among the trees. I hear you calling my name. I want you to keep chasing me, and I don't want you to know how far I would go to find out the truth of something, to scratch an itch that would tear the whole universe open. I'm sorry about this, but I'm not sorry about this. I'm already lighting the candles. I'm drawing a circle in the dirt with salt. I'm taking off my shoes. I'm already feeling the dirt beneath my feet dance. So I'll read one more from this. I talk a lot about Selena's killer, Yolanda Saldivar, and a few reviews are like, she's obsessed with her killer. And I'm not. I don't want to be her friend. I don't like what she did. And when she comes out of prison, she will be attacked by a swarm of women with hoops. And that is what you get when you kill somebody. However, I think it's important for us to think of people as not the worst thing that they've ever done, but also if we want to understand evil, we have to approach people with empathy or else we'll never defeat them. If we think of them as these monsters, then they will be these undefeatable monsters, but really we're all people who hurt each other. So with that, I'm going to read this contrapuntal that I wrote. And a contrapuntal is 2 poems side by side, and together you can make people talk to each other. In other words, it becomes a third poem. So this is called Yolanda and Selena Don't Talk Anymore, and this is Yolanda's side. I stopped you just in time. Now you'll be remembered. They'll never hear me sing. Most of the time, I'm a villain or a lesbian. Jealousy reveals a Polaroid of the woman I am not. When I called you bitch, it's gonna get bleeped, and shot you, what I meant was love. I just didn't want you to go. In another life, I am someone I can be proud of, the face you see in the moon. In another life, you want to love me. We are on the road going 85, playing a tape with only 2 songs. My arm is around your shoulders, and we are wasting time like water. You're breathing in my ear. And this is Selena's side. To dream about love for all eternity. That's why death isn't so bad. I like to think I've been pretty lucky for all of my life. I'm a saint who loved too hard, trusted too deeply, a prayer whispered violently, a letter stained with fear. I heard fans cheering. Their hands came together because they loved me. My heart was once the shape of a pink fist before it turns blue. I was brain dead before I was a headline. In this dream, I am a wife and a mother, a woman who says yes. I'm marinating steak, and when you want to bite, I let you. Somewhere far away, I am on a loop and I can't stop smiling. I'm still alive and everyone is watching, an entire country singing in my ear. And this is them together. I stopped you just in time to dream about love. Now you'll be remembered for all eternity. That's why they'll never hear me sing. Death isn't so bad. I like to think I've been pretty most of the time, lucky for all of my life. I'm a villain, I'm a saint or a lesbian who loved too hard, trusted too deeply. Jealousy reveals a prayer whispered violently, a Polaroid of the woman I am not, a letter stained with fear. When I called you bitch, I heard fans cheering. Their hands came together and shot you because they loved me. What I meant was my heart was once the shape of love, a pink fist before it turns blue. I just didn't want you to go. I was brain dead before I was a headline. In another life, in this dream, I am someone I can be proud of. I am a wife and a mother, the face you see in the moon, a woman who says yes. In another life, I'm marinating steak, and when you want to bite, you want to love me. I let you. We are on the road going 85, somewhere far away. I am playing a tape with only 2 songs on a loop, and my arm is around your shoulders, and I can't stop smiling. We are wasting time like water. I am still alive, and everyone is watching. You're breathing an entire country, singing in my ear. Thank you. Okay, so this is my book, Candelaria. As I have said, has been said, it's about a Guatemalan grandmother at the end of the world. You follow her through her one-day journey at the end of the world. And you also follow her American granddaughters who are really adrift and lost. And they're sisters, so they fight a lot. 2 of them got into a Kourtney and Kim Kardashian level of fight. Things were said that cannot be unsaid. And in order to get back at her sister in kind of this messy sister way, the youngest goes on a date with her sister's former lover, and something is deeply wrong with him. And that is what I'll say as I read this passage. All right. As Candy was getting dressed for her date, she was thinking, I deserve to be wanted and cared for in unexpected ways. I deserve nice things. She took the orange line and switched to the red line at Downtown Crossing. The train made her anxious. There at Grendel's, he was waiting for her at the end of the bar. You, he said. Yeah. She turned to the bartender. Can I have a Shirley Temple and some fries? She passed over the drink and Candy sipped with glee like a child. Fernando stared at her curiously. Tell me about yourself. Well, I'm Bianca's sister. Fernando didn't react to that at all. Candy burped. I like movies. I work at the movies. My boyfriend never wants to have sex with me. I did drugs as a teen, then that kind of went down a notch and started drinking heavily, then having sex heavily, and now I'm a boring loser going on a date with an older loser. The fries arrived. Candy started shaking her leg up and down. Fernando smiled at her, very friendly. She knew popping the fries into her mouth that this man was not the love of her life. Gazing at this older man who had obliterated her sister's career, Candy did have a familiar feeling, one of power and control. There is something that happens when a man looks at you like you are something more, or perhaps less than what you really are, like you are an answer, a salvation, the living and breathing embodiment of something that can finally free you from your mortal coil. Candy pictured herself surrounded by flowers and light, and Fernando below her on a field crying. Another Guadalupe reference, if you're keeping along, class. Please forgive me for saying this, Fernando said, but when I look at you, time stops. Oh, it is like I forget what age it is. It is like I am here and there. Everywhere I've been, there you are. Buildings can rise up and fall down. Species can die out and be made again. But you will have always stayed the same. I don't know if anyone has ever called me beautiful by trying so deeply hard not to at all. Fernando looked baffled, but also like he had never met a woman like Candy before, or ever met a woman at all. Let's go, she said, sucking her Shirley Temple dry and chewing on the ice. Fernando took out the wallet and laid it on the counter. Candy looked at him. Are you going to pay, or... Fernando smiled and nodded, unbuckled his wallet, and shuffled through cards. IDs, museum passes, coffee stubs. He stared at the credit card for a long minute until Candy snatched it and slammed it down into the counter where the bartender collected it. They left without signing. Walking awkwardly side by side, they took in the Boston spring air. The trees were slightly budding, new life threatening to burst. It had rained while they were inside, and everything looked especially green and vibrant, even at night. Really, tell me about yourself, Fernando said. I already did. Tell me about yourself. What was up with this man? But also, had anyone ever been this into knowing what she was about? Okay, you really want to know? Fernando nodded. He was an empathetic newscaster, and she, a woman recently rescued from a deserted island. My dad died when I was a kid. It was really unexpected. Just like a heart attack that had no explanation while he was out one day on a run. My mom made me and Bianca, Candy paused again to see if there would be any rise to his face. There wasn't. Go upstairs while she and my older sister figured out what was going on. And those few hours, or maybe it was just half an hour, I don't know, time, were the longest of my life because my sister was freaking out and I didn't know what was going on and she didn't want to tell me what was happening because it made me feel bad, but the more in the dark I was, the more my imagination got worse. I felt this trapped kind of panic that wouldn't go away. And the panic continued, and I guess I tried to quiet it with drugs and whatever. I mean, I've already figured this out in therapy, but I don't talk about it with a lot of people because it's humiliating to have feelings, so Fernando nodded his head. I'm sorry, he said to her. Another thing is my older sister disappeared after my dad died and everyone just thought she was dead. But I just saw her and it's like everyone is lying to me. And Bianca, she just does whatever she wants. She just left. I guess that's what everybody fucking does. I'm the only one who ever stays. Fernando nodded, putting his hand to his chin. I don't mean to be so drama. Fernando just kept staring at her. He took his hand away from his chin, but the hand stayed stuck in that position, as if it were holding an invisible plate. It's my own fault, Candy said. I have issues. Fernando's hand eventually returned to a normal position, slowly, like a memory foam pillow. You are many things, Fernando said. And Candy thought she saw something ripple across his cheek. She blinked. Why do you talk like Robert Frost? Who? Candy's leg kept shaking. It made her somehow feel more still. She was thinking about leaving. This man was clearly an idiot. Candy? A low, familiar voice. A man had approached her again. And so then here, she encounters this boy who sold her drugs that she overdosed on as a teen. He lives his life full of guilt about that moment. She survived the overdose. But just for the sake of the story, I'm going to move along. So seeing him is like a whirlwind. She hasn't seen him in 20 years, 15 years. Hey, Julian, she said, the corners of her mouth bouncing around like a frantic cursor as the computer freezes. This is Fernando. She pointed a thumb over at her date. Julian leaned over clumsily, his ball of ice cream threatening to fall off the sugar cone. Oh, what's up, dude? Nice to meet you, man. She felt Fernando tense up, and she almost liked his protectiveness. Fernando held out his hand and shook Julian's, stiff as a mannequin at a theme park. Candy wasn't sure what to say to him and wanted him to understand that sometimes there is nothing to say to anybody except, hello, you're still alive? Goodbye. They looked at each other and Julian seemed to hear her say that and she was thankful for it. Okay, nice to meet you. See you. Have a good life. He put his mouth to the ice cream finally and walked away. Candy, of course, thought of her sister and her protectiveness of her and how she made Julian feel horrible and she felt angry. What did her sister know about anything? All she wanted to do was control. Did he mean something to you? Fernando asked, snapping Candy out of her trance. His hair looked grayer underneath the university lights. Could she see his scalp? Was it red? Not really. Okay, he said, fixing his gaze on her again, as if Julian had never been there and she were the only person in the world. He coughed suddenly, and a tooth came out in his hand. He kept his gaze fixed on her. There was no blood on the tooth. Do you want to take care of that? She almost found it endearing. He set the tooth on the bench. You're kind of nasty, Candy said, a smile forming at the corners of her mouth. What do you like in this world? Fernando asked. His eyes were very dilated. Like in general? Fernando took in the word general, trying it out in his mouth. Yes. I guess movies? Movies. I love every movie, even the bad ones. I went into this YouTube hole a while ago looking for this movie called The Leaf. It's a 90s horror flick, but instead I found a movie that's also called The Leaf. But it's made by this independent filmmaker somewhere in Idaho, and it's probably the worst thing I've ever seen. The worst? Yes, it was amazing. There's a leaf that lands on this guy's face and there's blood on it. And obviously it's a metaphor for his dead son and he takes a leaf off, but it keeps haunting this guy who also obviously wrote and directed it. So pathetic. And then the leaf starts torturing him. Somehow it cuts off his legs and at the end he turns into a leaf. Candy was delighted talking about it, clapping her hands together, her eyes glossy with tears. I love stuff like that. It's just so bad. Maybe I'm sick. Fernando nodded his head, completely serious. Thank you for sharing that with me. One of his eyelids were closing, like he was falling asleep or winking at her. Yeah. Candy crossed her eyes and made the sign of the horns with her fingers. It was impossible for her to be sincere, and he was embarrassing her slightly. What was wrong with him? It's just funny because it was like one movie was cosplaying as the other. He nodded. She started feeling disappointed. She wanted something to come from the night instead of this extremely boring bust. She wanted to reach him somehow, even if it took drowning in her own words. But what do I know? She said. I mean, I've never written a movie or even tried. I always say I'm going to, and then I never get around to it because, well, I work full time and I have all this trauma I have to deal with. So it's really important for me to rest in a radical way, I guess. But also I'm a piece of shit who can't do anything because I've never technically finished high school. I mean, I have my GED and I'm always consuming things. I'm like a person of culture. I'm pretty smart, actually. You don't need to be educated to be an intelligent person. Everyone's like, oh, Bianca's a smart one. But actually, Bianca is the most selfish one. And being selfish gets you places, I guess. And look at her. She isn't even happy doing what she's doing. I'm totally fine staying here. I'm pretty happy kind of just doing whatever. Fernando took her hand and Candy led him. Maybe this man wasn't so bad, she thought. Maybe, like Julian, he was someone who had made a mistake. Maybe Bianca got hysterical and couldn't see what was actually happening. He just wasn't into her anymore. It was probably Bianca who kicked herself off her own archaeological site. She's an archaeologist. Bianca is. Read the book. I like listening to you, he said, leaning closer to her. And she felt it, whatever it was, the power she had over him or that he had over her, interlocking and making a decision. For Candy, there had always been consequences to feeling good, trauma for her family, jail, shame. But she thought she had finally found a way to feel good enough without the aid of drugs or alcohol or sex, to feel the hole she'd been trying to fill, the hole she'd been trying to fill forever. And that was with regimen, with exercise. She gave herself endorphins by moving her body extremely, sweating from one place to another. She felt it was the most moral thing to do is ride a bike. Using the food inside your body to move a machine that isn't leaking any gas into the world. It's not taking away carbon, but it isn't adding it any either. The best thing you can do as a person is to be neutral. But her bike was gone. Was this neutral? Candy thought as she led Fernando into her room and he took off her clothes. Bianca had lied to her. This made it even. This made it neutral. Fernando lowered her onto the bed and Candy felt herself giving in to neutrality. At least I'm not on drugs, she thought, the walls around her body falling. At least I have a say in what's going on. You smell good, he said, his nose against her neck. You don't smell like anything. And he didn't. Candy figured she had allergies. It was spring. He held down her right hip with his hand and she felt as if she were merged with the bed, and she liked it, the acknowledgement that she was there. Briefly, she thought about how her sister had once been in her place, but she dodged the thought like a speeding car, focusing instead on her own breath and the goose flesh raising on her arms. Okay, and then he eats her out, awkward, and instead of describing it, I say, she was not present, she was everywhere. She was on her doorknob. She was wherever the hell her bicycle ended up, in a blonde wig in an old car, taking a long drive to a motel that would ruin her life. A montage of blood oranges and old photos. This is what having sex is like. Bursts of light and darkness. A song she heard in a supermarket while holding a sack of sugar away from herself. She clawed at Fernando's back, turning over his shoulders and having him enter her. I'm really sorry. He was remarkably stiff, and it made Candy feel like she was screwing a silicone doll of a man, which was amazing because it was almost like being alone. She could barely see him in the dark, and if she did, she would have seen that his ear had fallen off. Candy woke up suddenly around 3 a.m. to a slurping noise. Turning, she saw Fernando sleeping next to her. His cheeks rustled like trees, his chin elongated. His face was stretching until it reached his shoulders. His body began contorting and melting until it was the shape of silly putty ready to be molded and packaged into a canister. She backed away from the bed, nearly falling down as Fernando's body took over it. Candy ran to the bathroom, rubbing her eyes, certain this was just a dream. When she returned, Fernando was gone. There wasn't even the shape of him left on the bed. She climbed back in. A dream. He had left. There was no evidence of what she had just done. She had felt amazing and then deeply afraid, and both of those things canceled each other out, didn't they? She didn't feel good. She didn't feel bad. The sheets were just cold. She was just alone. Thank you.
What inspired the plot of the second book? Now it's like a really random, so I'm just curious.
I think a lot, mainly it's a poem that I wrote called How to Survive the Zombie Apocalypse as an 82-year-old Guatemalan grandmother. And in it, she's like trying to make her way to her granddaughters. So I was just trying to figure out what was happening with the granddaughters. And one of those things is, I think I just like love story. I love a little love triangle. I love a little vengeance. Being a lover for vengeance, and I was really inspired by Cronenberg, who does a lot of absurd body horror. I grew up in the 2000s, so I think The Ring and just a girl crawling out of a TV really scared me, and a lot of that is in the book. Yeah.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. My name's Nade. But my question is, that poem where you had like the separate conversation thing, what sparked that idea to even do that, to the point where like you have this one person talking, then the other person talking, and then like they're both, like
Yeah.
you read it together, it's like a conversation.
I was really inspired by this poet called Tayimba Jess, who wrote this book of poems called Olio, and you find a lot of the poem is, yes, it's very good. And there's a lot of contrapuntals, which is the name of the structure of that poem. And in order to like learn how to do it, I was reading one of the poems, which is a conversation between these two Siamese twins. And he made it so that you can like read it from like down to up in addition to like across. So you can read it 4 different ways, which is really nuts. It's also a sonnet. So it's 14 lines and 10 syllables a line. It's an insane structure, really cool. I would really recommend it. And it was a really great way to learn how to read it. So Tayimba Jess Olio, if you want to check that out. It's called Olio. Olio.
I was just curious about how you managed to find such a good balance between different, tones in the story, like disturbing and say vengeful, and then comedic all in one scene. How did you manage to make it so how did you manage to make it seem so effortlessly?
Well, thank you so much for saying that. I think it does take quite a bit of effort. I would say that all of those elements that you were talking about, humor and disturbing, and I forget what else you said, but they all have something to do with each other, and they all kind of I think a punchline feels the same way that a jump scare does. And if you watch enough scary movies, you can sometimes you can predict when they're happening. And sometimes it's based on music, but you can feel the beats of when something bad is going to happen. And if you, watch a lot of comedy, you can tell when somebody's about to tell a joke. And I just love how those two things interact with each other. They're both a release of emotion. They're both laughing and, screaming kind of sound the same. So I just, I don't know. I think I just I exercise that a lot.
Who would you say are your biggest writing influences?
Ooh,
Authors, I mean.
yeah. Okay. I have a big list of people I'm influenced by. I really love Shirley Jackson. She wrote a short story called The Lottery, a book called The Haunting of Hill House, which is made into a Netflix show. The book is better. And she really deals with like her demons in a really universal, classic way. I love Mariana Enriquez. She's an Argentine writer. And she has said that like when she needs to finish a scene, she like just like sees a really disturbing image in her head, and that's how she finishes it. I love Kelly Link, who she just like writes like spectral fiction where weird things happen and then she never explains them to you, but there's kind of this like, in a way, when like you have when you like never get to make out with someone or something, you're always like wondering what it would be like because you can't figure out what's going on in the story, and there's like this eroticness to it. I like Joyce Carol Oates too. Mm-hmm. And Terrence Hayes for poetry. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have been asking about your influences. But I would also like to know, like, not just in like writing or or film, but like even because I know I write sometimes, and even music can be an influence on writing. So something like that, like something unusual. Is there anything unusual like that
Oh
may
yeah,
have influenced
definitely. I listened to when I was writing Candelaria, I listened to a lot of horror movie soundtracks and Lana Del Rey. And that was funny. I liked how she's sung about like youth and death. I listened to the soundtrack to Midsommar on a loop, which was maybe bad for my mental health. And I love the sad singer-songwriter girls.
We had talked a little bit about this over dinner time, but I was wondering. Oh my gosh, I lost it. I just got nervous. I lost it for a second. I also do painting and stuff, and I find that like for me, when I'm doing visual art, I feel that I have more of like a separation of myself from like what I'm putting out there, but writing feels like a really like personal reflection, and even just getting like a little bit embarrassed about reading out some of like the more erotic scenes right now that you had. How do you like get past that, like knowing that anyone, like your parent or like a friend or like someone that you meet in passing could like read your book?
You know, I'm really fascinated by shame, and I grew up Catholic, so I live with a lot of it. And I think in order to be a writer, I had to like rid myself of it, but also kind of constantly be okay with just being embarrassed. And there's not really anything wrong with being humiliated, because it's just like a one-way situation. And this writer, so I also think that like. So like Dreaming of You, both books are like a little raunchy, but Dreaming of You is like pretty raunchy. And it's raunchy in a way that embarrasses me a little now because I don't think I can like access that part of myself anymore. So I will say that there's like a window of fearlessness that like goes away because you just like grow up and know better. And so you have to take advantage of like not knowing better right now.
Cool. What was the publishing process like for you? Like, did you do it independently? And what made you write something that you liked so much that you were like, yeah, you know what? Let me publish this.
Right. I know. I'm still asking myself that question. So initially, when I was just doing slam poetry and doing gigs, and I didn't have any book, I did like zine making. I published a small zine with a now defunct organization called Pizza Pie Press. And they paired me with this illustrator, and I had all these poems, and she illustrated them, and I would sell them, and I would print them out at Kinko's, and I would just like sell them out of my backpack. And I had a lot of fun doing that, and I would do it again. And after that, when I got my MFA, I started like being more in publishing spaces, and I had trouble finding an agent because I had this kind of like strange foray into writing, non-traditional way into writing, and I didn't know where to talk to people, so I just kept getting rejected by agents. And then I went to a party and met a woman petting a cat, and that is how I met my agent. So that's my advice. And then we sold Dreaming of You to an editor, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which she's working on the film script for Dreaming of You now. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you.